I've put together what I believe to be the perfect free hit draft for double game week 25. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and today we're going to be taking a look at what I believe to be the perfect, or if not close to perfect, free hit draft ahead of double game week 25. Now, there are a few people that have been mentioning to me that they're looking at free hitting this week. This won't be for everyone, but if you are considering it, or if you just want general advice on some of the best players to bring in for this game week, this video should sort you out pretty nicely. So before we dive into the team, I've built this team on 102 million. I think that's fairly reasonable. I've also left a little bit of money in the bank, 1.1 million as it stands as well. So hopefully most people should be able to afford this. But if not, there's a bit of money left on the bench as well. So you could downgrade one or two positions there and make this draft even more affordable. Now, it's also worth noting that this won't be the perfect free hit draft for everyone. There are obviously infinite combinations you could pick from. This is my personal preference, but always please do leave a comment below letting me know which players you'd prefer to pick, and we can have a discussion about them in the chat below. So let's start off with the keeper and the defence all in one, because I think it goes together quite nicely. And you'll notice that Man City and Liverpool defenders don't feature whatsoever. I'll go into that in just a moment's time, but Alisson in goal is the only Liverpool player on screen as it stands. Now, I think with Alisson, there aren't many Liverpool players in the back line or around the team that you would guarantee 90 minutes from in both matches in the double game week, obviously barring injury. But Alisson is one of those that I'd believe to be as nailed as they come. Now, obviously, he missed the most recent match, but that seemed to be just a little bit of flu. You'd expect him to have recovered by this point. However, do check the training photos. Do make sure that he is fit to start, because that would be very, very annoying if he only played in one of the two matches. However, Brentford away, Luton at home, I don't think represent the best chances of clean sheets. I think both get plenty of shots away, which is why I also think Alisson is the correct combination of both save points and the potential for at least one clean sheet in there as well. I think if you went with Van Dijk, obviously, you've got the upside of a bullet header potentially from a corner. But I think with Alisson, you're just banking on the fact that he could get a couple of save points and hopefully covers off the clean sheet pretty nicely as well at a cheaper price. It is worth noting. Now, moving into the bench, Kaminsky makes it as my sub goalkeeper. I don't expect him to get any minutes, but because he's so cheap, and because he's got a double game week, I think it just makes logical sense to have him planted on the bench. I'm not planning on starting 3 Luton players, so I can easily enough have him as my bench keeper there, just in case some sort of catastrophe strikes and Alisson can't play for whatever reason. Moving into defence, I'll go from left to right. Now, Reguilon, I don't expect clean sheets from necessarily, but I think the attacking upside is there. He's on set pieces, so he was taking corners for Brentford already, and as a lot of people have already discussed, for his price point at under 5 million, comfortably under 5 million, I think he's still at 4.4. He's actually really affordable, and he gets forward a lot in open play as well. He's kind of like a headless chicken down that left wing. That really suits Brentford's style of play. I expect him to create plenty of chances, even against pretty tough opposition. And I think, considering the fact that I don't think there are necessarily tons of clean sheets going around this game week, chasing the upside in defence is something I really want to do with this free hit team, and go really, really aggressive on the midfielders and the attackers in Man City and Liverpool players in particular. So to do that, I can't really start a Man City defender, because that's just taking up another slot later on as well. So Reguilon gets the nod in defence. Alongside him, Alfie Doughty will be popular not just in free hit teams, but also with a few managers just making free transfers this game week. The reason being is because he doesn't just double this game week, he also doubles in game week 28. The benefit of bringing him in on a free hit, though, is that we don't need to worry about game week 26 when Luton blank. Now, again, a bit like Reguilon, Man United and Liverpool in the double, you're not expecting clean sheets, but he is attacking enough once again that you would expect maybe an assist or two in that double game week, especially in that home fixture against Man United. I fancy him to do quite well there. And Luton at home are an entirely different beast. Now, with that in mind as well, I think it's important to note that, again, we're not really expecting clean sheets there, but I think based on his price point and the fact that I want to front load this free hit as aggressively as possible with as much attacking talent, I think keeping it cheap in the defense is going to be really important. Now, moving across, the only single game week player that I've got in my starting 11 is Gabriel. Now, most weeks, if I was free hitting in a double game week, I would want to have 11 double game weekers in there. But I think considering some of the fixtures, I think Gabriel is absolutely fine to start, if not optimal to start, against Burnley away from home. Now, two key statistics that have tipped it in Gabriel's favour here are, one, that Arsenal are the best attacking set-piece team in the league statistically, and two, Burnley are the worst. So with that combination in mind, I expect either Gabriel or Saliba to do really well in this double game week, even though they've only got the single game week fixture. Obviously, they've got a decent chance of a clean sheet there as well. And if they get some sort of attacking return, bonus points are probably on the menu too. Now, I've picked Gabriel because he's got slightly better attacking threats in terms of the underlying XG than Saliba, and at a cheaper price. So again, it just makes this free hit all the more affordable. Now, moving on to the bench, I'm really not expecting either of these two players to feature at all. So I've kept it nice and cheap and cheerful. I've gone with Van Heck away at Sheffield United. He's got decent underlying attacking data, especially from set pieces. He likes bombing forward as well, which is rare for a centre-back. And Sheffield United is a good fixture. But once again, not expecting him to come in at all. It's more if catastrophe strikes and we need to rely on someone on the bench to come in and do a job. Now, Branthwaite is a very similar issue. Nice, cheap, cheerful, just like Van Heck. Crystal Palace at home. It's a decent fixture. He's good from the set pieces. I'm not expecting him to play whatsoever. It's just another defender that I think, again, if something really weird happens, then at least I can rely on him to start, and it's a decent enough fixture as well. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the goalkeeper and defence combination, and we'll move on now to the midfield, where I think it gets really, really interesting. So moving on to midfield, and this is where things start to get really interesting. Obviously, I've front-loaded it with a lot of funds into the midfield and attack, and if we start off with the Man City assets, I think it's clear to see why. So starting off with KDB, I think if you're using free transfers to get there, if you're using a hit, then De Bruyne makes a little bit less sense because he is quite pricey. He isn't easy to get to for a lot of teams right now if you don't already have him. I think in my team, for example, I've got Bukayo Saka and only 0.1 million in the bank. So to maneuver to get across to De Bruyne would take quite a bit of squad surgery. If you're on a free hit, you obviously don't have that problem. So De Bruyne gets shoved straight in, and I don't think there will be much debate about that at all. His attacking upside is fantastic. He's at a pretty decent price point for what he provides us at this point as well. And Chelsea and Brentford both at home are a cracking double game week. Now, he is big game Kev as well, so even that Chelsea game, you'd expect him to put his hand up and really take the lead. He is on some set pieces, he is getting forward quite a lot, and as we've seen already, he is in phenomenal form since coming back from injury. The one asterisk, I guess, on KDB would be about his expected minutes. Now, I personally think that across the double, he's going to get decent minutes. I think we're probably looking at something along the lines of 120 to 150 minutes at most. I think across a double game week of both two home fixtures, that is more than enough to make KDB value for money, especially on a free hit where you don't need to worry about what next week brings, where he could get benched in game week 26. I think with this double in mind, I'd be very happy to include him. There's plenty of attacking upside there, and I think it's an opportunity that free hitters can take that other managers like myself might not be able to without using the free hit chip. Now, the second Man City midfielder I'm looking at, and I think would be locked in on a free hit draft, is Phil Foden. He has been in the form of his life recently, and the underlying attacking data is also looking more and more encouraging week in, week out. He's also taking up more central roles than we're used to with Phil Foden. He's getting more reliable minutes than we've seen in seasons past as well, and he just looks incredibly important to the way Man City set up. So I think out of all of the Man City attacking assets, maybe bar Haaland, he's the one that I'd expect to get the most minutes in the double game week. Not only that, he's also striking up a really decent partnership with Erling Haaland. He's playing off of him as a stooge every now and then, and I think that that will provide him with enough big chances in this double game week to see him get really decent points. Now, moving on, the first Liverpool outfield player that we're going to talk about is Diogo Jota. Now, I don't think we need to talk about his benefits extensively because he's going to be really appealing to free hitters and non-free hitters alike. But just a quick word on it. Brentford away from home, Luton at home. I think both of those shout good attacking fixtures for Liverpool. Now, it is worth noting that Brentford's underlying defensive data is actually pretty good. They're fourth best in the league. However, their goalkeeper has the worst XGC per 90 prevented out of any starting regular keeper in the Premier League. So when chances are being created, they're tending to go in more often than not, which again, I think is more cause for us to pile front loading into Liverpool attacking assets. Diogo Jota, underlying data above 0.5 XGI per 90. And again, we've seen he's in lethal form at the moment and a really decent price. So I don't think there'll be too many people contesting the fact that Jota would be in a free hit perfect 11. Now, moving across, we've got to save money somewhere, and the one cheeky differential I wanted to pile in on this free hit would be Ross Barkley. I'm not expecting miracles from him, but he has been in good form lately, and he's at a really affordable price, which kind of helps me use the funds elsewhere in midfield and in attack and really front load with some big attacking assets. Now, Ross Barkley is that enabler. Man United and Liverpool, I'm not expecting a ton from, but he will play both games, you would think, based on how important he's been to Luton recently. And if he can even sneak one attacking return across the double, we're probably looking at an 8 to 10 pointer, which, again, I don't think many single game weekers at his price point you could reliably say will make that kind of return. Now, on the bench, I've got Richarlison at home to Wolves. Now, I think if you can afford Saka, I would probably go to Saka. But with this draft in mind, because I want to keep it affordable, Richarlison's at a price point that I think is very manageable for a lot of us and is probably the best of the affordable single game week players. Now, there is an argument to suggest, based on the form that he's in, based on how attacking Tottenham are, that you could actually start him over Ross Barkley. And I will leave that very much up to your own decision making. I think it's pretty much a coin flip there. But I would back the double, personally, and I think having Richarlison sat first on the bench is a nice player to have as a backup if you need him. That being said, though, he could easily haul against Wolves, but he will probably not be on penalties anymore with Son coming back in, which is maybe one very slight mark against him and one reason that I'd probably favour starting a differential in Barkley and really chasing the upside of the double game week, because 2 tickets to the lottery is better than 1 at the end of the day. So moving into the front line, and it's a big front three. I think this would be, no doubt about it, my favourite preferred front three for a free hit. And even if you're not on a free hit, you're probably wanting to get at least 2 of these 3 players, if not all 3. Starting with the obvious one, Erling Haaland gets the armband for me. He's got the highest expected data for game week 25. No doubt about it, he is going to be my favoured captain option in either a free hit team or just in a regular week-to-week, game-week team, and he will have the armband for me. There are differential options you could pick from. Liverpool assets have a good game week, obviously, and De Bruyne is always going to be on the radar for a few managers too. But I think if you want to go with the safe guarantee of points or near enough guarantee of points, Haaland is probably your man. Chelsea at home, Brentford at home, likely to start both games, and City are on a title charge at the moment, so they're not going to want to rest him if they don't have to. Now, moving on from Haaland, Darwin is getting the vice-captaincy armband at the moment. So, again, if something really weird happens and Haaland doesn't play at all, I'd be more than happy to have Darwin as my vice-captain getting the double points instead. His underlying data is absolutely fantastic, and he's got a bundle of returns this season as well. I think he can be frustrating. I mentioned it on every single one of my videos that he's the sort of player that maybe you just sort of watch from behind a sofa, but you still hold him anyway. You still enjoy the points when they come in. They just come when you probably least expect them, and maybe don't expect too many bonus points because he does miss a lot of chances. With that in mind, the fact that his underlying data is so fantastic, it's actually not that far off of Haaland's either. His is 0.97 XGI per 90 for reference, and Haaland's is 1.08, so it's not that far away. And I think out of the two, I think on paper, Brentford away, Luton at home is maybe arguably very slightly better than Man City's double game week. But the fact that it's but 2 home fixtures and Man City are Man City probably swings it in their favour anyway. But Darwin, the fact that he does miss a lot of chances, he's not great on the bonus points, and he can be very frustrating, is just the main reason why I prefer the armband on Haaland rather than him. With that being said, though, I'm expecting a bag full of points from him in the double game week. I also expect the minutes for both Jota and Darwin to be really good, because we still don't know anything about Salah's fitness. And if I was a betting man, I'd probably guess at Salah getting a few minutes off the bench in the Luton game, which will impact one of the Liverpool forward line, but I think considering their price point, even if they only get 150 minutes across the double rather than 180, that double game week is more than good enough for them to still be value for money. So no questions asked. Jota, Darwin, both players that I would absolutely have in my free hit team. And even if you're not free hitting, those would be 2 of my priority transfers this game week, along with Erling Haaland, if you didn't have any of those 3 players. The final player is Ivan Toney. Now, again, if I was free hitting, this would be my front 3, no question about it. Toney, despite the fact it's not a very appealing double game week on paper, Liverpool and Man City, I mention it on a lot of videos at the moment, he is a big game player. He scores a lot of goals against top 8 opposition. Half of his goals last season came against top 8 opposition as well. And he just seems like a man with a bit between his teeth at the moment. He's obviously fighting very hard to put himself in the shop window for a summer move. And of course, he's hungry for goals. He's got that sort of charisma, that sort of arrogance about him, that against the bigger teams, he'll want to show off. He'll want to prove a point. Liverpool and Man City both leave themselves open on the counter quite a lot. And Toney, being a big target man like he is, and with a great finish on him, won't snatch at those single chances he gets. He might only get 1 or 2 shots in these games, but if there is any striker that you'd back to score those 1 or 2 shots, it is him. Also on penalties, also on free kicks as well. I think there's not really a lot against Ivan Toney other than the fact that those are on paper pretty tough fixtures, but he'll get 90 minutes in both barring some sort of freak injury, and I really like him for this double game week, especially on a free hit. So there you have it. If I was free hitting this game week, that would be my starting 11 and my 15 in its entirety. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this free hit draft, what you'd rate it out of 10. And if you have time, please let me know what changes you would make to make it your perfect free hit draft as well. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. But I'll see you later on this game week anyway, as we prepare and set up my team for double game week 25.